Today we're going to find out what is title and who does it. Be right back. Welcome to Shop Talk for Realtors. I'm Joe Matuella, and always I'm here with
Coach Keith Dean. How you doing today, everybody?
All right, so today we are going to talk about title. What's really great is title. You have an option. You can go with a title company or with an attorney. Today we're meeting with Christina Rubio from Ochoa and Rubio, PA, right? All right, so welcome. So,
thank you.
All right, so Christina does all of our title work, at least all the title work that is accepted by our buyers or sellers, right? So we have a really good relationship. Jillian's been working with you for years.
Yeah, it's going on 7 years now.
All right. So I guess the first thing would be is let's talk about what is title. Like it's a nebulous thing. Everybody knows it's insurance, but really what is it?
So really the best way to explain it is, you know how you buy car insurance or homeowner's insurance for something that could possibly happen in the future? Title insurance covers everything that has already happened in the past. So it is going to catch things like false deeds or fraudulent transactions or anything that's happened prior to you buying your new home.
So essentially, right, that's the part that's a title search. So when the first thing you do is you title search, you go and check all the records of that house back in time.
Right.
How far back do you actually go?
20 years.
Okay.
20
so
years.
It was a question I had. I didn't realize, I was thinking in Philadelphia, I flipped a house that was 400 years old, and I thought, wonder how far back that goes. Only 20.
Yeah, only 20 based on most of the contractual limitations from the state's laws.
Okay. All right, so 20 years, and in that you're essentially looking for, how title was passed from one to the next.
Correct.
Is that the primary thing you're looking for, or are you looking to make sure that all the information within the title, the lot and plot and all that stuff is accurate?
You're looking for all of that, and you're also looking for any liens or any things that have been unpaid in the past, anything that may be outstanding from 20 years ago that has not yet been cleared, that could potentially come and affect your current buyer.
Oh, okay. Well, I know we've been through that. We had that one recently where the guy had a lien, and we didn't find out about it until you found out about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you find anything illegal?
Not necessarily illegal. Once in a while we do find a fraudulent transaction, but the majority of things are things that were just never cleared up previously from a prior owner, a probate, anything that could have happened to one of the prior owners.
Ooh, let's go right to the exciting stuff. So my first thing would be is there's so much fraud going on with those fake people trying to sell lots and houses that aren't theirs.
Which is happening right now.
Right,
Yeah.
and there's kind of a famous event that occurred in our area where there was a lot and the money actually transacted. Like how could that be missed?
So a lot of times you get particularly foreign buyers who have lots here in the States, foreign buyers from other states even who have lots here. And it's very, very easy for a fraudster to come in, set up a Google account, Gmail account, any type of Yahoo account, same with a Google phone number, call in and say, hey, I'm Joe Matuella and I want to sell this lot that I own in Lehigh Acres. You've never owned that lot, you've never seen that lot, but all of a sudden you're the owner of that lot. So generally the idea is you do a lot of due diligence behind this. You do some research, you make some phone calls, find out if the person who's on the phone is really the person who is trying to sell this lot. And you do as much as that as you can before you even get it listed, hopefully, so you don't have an issue down the road.
I know what we do is if we don't meet with them face to face, we start Googling the heck out of it. I think the first time it happened, I think we set it up in .loop. We got that far, and then all of a sudden, just something rang wrong, and then we started combing through it, and then we looked up the information, called the owner of the property, and the guy was like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Yep, we've stopped about 10 or 12 of those in the last year or so. So yeah, about one a month that we're doing that we are able to help realtors and or buyers with. But a lot of times what we'll do also is we'll send FedEx letters or certified mail saying, hey, are you really truly the owner of this property and are you really truly trying to sell it?
Right.
So what can the agents do to kind of start that ball rolling? What's the first place they should look to find out who the real owner of that property is?
Google. You can find a ton of stuff online somebody's phone number, somebody's address. The tax collector's office will obviously have the person's address that they want their tax bill sent to. Search online in those records for that county where that person lives. Are they truly the owner of this property? Do they have any other properties listed at the address that they've given on the tax collector's website? You can start unraveling it pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's what I should do when I was in real estate. I would go to the property appraisal site, because that's usually the name that I want to make sure is right on there
Correct.
as well. And then if there's POAs, or if it's in a trust or things of that nature, it kind of gives you what you should be putting on the contract, because that's what you want to match up.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of times you do find someone, we've had them in the past where we've done searches in the past for someone who actually was a relative. They were a son of the person who owned it, and they tried to sell the property.
Ooh.
Yep,
Right.
public record searches are your best bet to start your digging into somebody's background and whatnot, because you will find a lot of different things online.
To get their phone number, like I have a membership to People Search,
Mhm.
and so it's like a bucket phone number, so it's totally worth it.
Facebook is also your friend for that kind of stuff.
Yes,
Oh.
indeed.
You can dig up all sorts of stuff
Oh
on
yeah,
Facebook.
yeah. You get their name, you can
Yep.
find most people.
You
but,
can private message somebody.
yeah.
Absolutely, I've done that before as
yeah.
well. Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, we just had an event where we had a lot, and we were like, look, if you can't FaceTime us and you can't send us your driver's license, we're not going to talk. Next thing you know, a week later we get the driver's license and it's totally photoshopped.
Yeah,
It's
we are asking for
bad
driver's
Photoshop.
licenses, and if it's somebody who's a foreigner, we are asking for a passport ahead of time.
Right.
Good.
Yep.
So yeah, but it's funny. And then when it passed from us, it went to Sheila. He called Sheila, and Sheila did the same thing. The same guy. So
Yeah.
it was nice that it was at least close where we could keep talking about it and put it out there. But
It's a shame. I've been doing this for almost 21 years, and it's kind of like we have to have a criminal mind in order for us to protect our clients. But
Absolutely.
we do have to think that way. I used to never wanted to think that way, but it's kind of like, now we have to have that. There's a show there, isn't there?
there is.
But they'll come up with something new the minute you figure out what
Oh,
they're doing.
yeah.
They'll come up with something new.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I
So
mean,
you constantly have to be morphing yourself into something else, like you said, that criminal mind.
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Well, now with AI, right? That'll be the next thing. So
Yep.
you're
Oh,
really
yeah.
going to have to start paying attention to the quality of everything. And
That's what scared me when AI actually started,
yeah,
especially when Robert, with our company, they actually started with the AI and how it's been working for them and how it sounds so real.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds better than real sometimes, and
Yeah.
it's all in the wording too.
It's. I mean, it is.
really phenomenal.
It'll be interesting where it goes in the next year because it's already gotten so much better just in the last 4 months. But all right, so back to title. So the main things, right? So you do the title search is just a bunch of research,
Mhm.
and then once you have your final standing on it, you can have it insured if everything is in good standing.
Correct. Yes.
Right?
And
If it's
so
not
the-
in good standing,
then we can't close until we fix all the issues that are still outstanding. So
Okay.
generally, the idea is that you'll never have to use your title insurance, much like you don't want to use your homeowner's insurance to file a claim. But when you do, you want to make sure that you have that title insurance. I just had a claim recently for a client of mine. We did not do the closing. Some other company did the closing. They missed an old mortgage that was never satisfied. So we filed a title claim on behalf of my client. It took us about 8 months to get it resolved, and the title insurance put up some money. The prior seller ended up putting up some money, but they handled all of it. It was zero out of pocket to my client. They covered all his attorney's fees and costs and all of the settlement costs.
So that's what I wanted to bring up too, because title insurance is not just for the past; it's also for the future, for what's been done
Right.
at this office to make sure that nothing's been missed.
Correct. Absolutely.
Good.
Right. So when I issue a title policy to the next buyer, if they ever have a problem, they can come back against me and say, hey, you didn't catch this, you didn't do this. So
Right. And your objective is to have clear title.
absolutely. We can't close without clear title.
Yeah. Perfect.
Mhm.
And then, so the next big obvious question is you have title companies and you have law firms, or lawyers, I guess, right? You can be individual, but it's all law firms. So what's the advantage? Or let's talk about,
Difference.
what's the primary difference?
Yeah.
So the big difference is obviously attorneys, we're regulated by the Florida Bar. We have different standards that we have to adhere to, both financially and everything else. The Office of Insurance Regulation is what governs title companies. You really need to post a bond and pass a background check, and pretty much anybody can open a title company. Attorneys will be able to do a lot of things that title companies cannot do. So technically, when you're preparing legal documents, there are certain forms that a title company uses, most of which are approved by the American Land Title Association or other governing bodies. And those are pretty straightforward. They're allowed to use those and basically fill in the blanks. But you come to me and you say you want to do a private mortgage, they're not allowed to come up with mortgage documents for you. You have a very specific deal that you want to word with somebody, they're really not supposed to be providing legal advice. It's the unauthorized practice of law. If they're giving you advice on things that really should be run through a lawyer. Right. So we can handle all that stuff for you guys, soup to nuts. We basically charge the same things that title companies do. Obviously, we charge for different services like creating of mortgage documents, promissory notes, specific agreements. We'll charge differently for those. But as far as standard title, regular soup to nuts closing with not anything new or different, we're the same as anybody else. Now, I think we've talked about this in the past as well, as people from different states are used to dealing with attorneys. They get here. Florida is not an attorney closing state, so it's a little weird for them. They prefer to have an attorney. That's what they're used to. So again, it just provides another level of protection for your clients and another level of assurance that they have somebody who has some fiduciary duties and some different background and responsibilities to be able to look at title.
And they have somebody that can draw up a document that title companies can't do.
Right.
Yeah, and so when we write it, one of the things I know that I like is we'll write an addendum and then we'll run it by you.
Yep.
And you'll be like, oh no.
No, you can't say that.
And one thing I noticed too, Joe, that was pretty interesting is that in New York, for example, they literally can strike through anything they want to an initial next to it.
Yes.
In the state of Florida, it's always best to accept the contract and change the contract through addendums. Is that correct?
That is generally the accepted practice, but there is nothing that says you cannot strike through these standard provisions. I generally don't recommend it because all these standard provisions on the 12 pages of contract exist because it's already been litigated.
Yes.
So let's leave that and let's make changes to the things that we need to make changes to. I see much more of those strike-throughs in commercial contracts than you do in residential.
That's a little bit different.
Vacant land, you see those as well.
Yeah, but we've had so much fraud in this state. We're like one of
Yes.
the number one fraudulent states in the country. And the reason why we have 12 pages and not like North Carolina, who has 4.
Right.
You know, so the reason that is because, as you said, it has been brought out. Something's happened. The reason we have another page is because some more things have happened.
Correct.
We have changes every so often, which is every about 3 or 4 years we'll have a change because somebody's trying to pull a fast one.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's kind of like my father used to say, there's a reason there's a stoplight there instead of a stop sign, because someone didn't know how to stop at a stop sign.
Yep.
So therefore there's a stoplight. And so we have to go a little bit deeper. So that's the change in the law. I never like to strike through the Florida contract.
Right.
Never have.
I don't either.
I like to say, okay, this is your issue, then let's put this on addendum 1 and talk about what that issue is, right? You know, so what you saying we can do either way, or?
Yes, anything is negotiable.
Okay.
Okay, everything is negotiable. But how you do it, you want to make sure you do it correctly.
Yes.
And that's my concern is always with people, especially from up north, who I get somebody's lawyer from New York who wants to strike through my contract. I'm like, no, let's talk about the issues you have. And like you said, let's put it on an addendum and let's clarify it. Again,
Because it kind of breaks the contract in essence. Like
Well,
right? You can take something out. And
it breaks the flow. It breaks what the reason why it was there. It was put there for a specific reason. And as you said, anything can be negotiated. But I like the idea of leaving the contract alone and then adding it, so subtracting away from it, because then you're like accepting the fact that that's there, and then you want to change it.
Understanding also that by striking out a specific provision, it may be affecting other provisions within
Exactly.
the
That's
contract
what I
that
meant by
you're
breaking
not,
it. Yeah.
that
Exactly.
you're not necessarily aware of tying together. For example, it's like my favorite, honor before. Everybody loves it. Everybody likes to use it. The problem is you now have a series of floating dates throughout your entire contract. 99% of the time it doesn't matter. The one time something goes wrong, all those dates are extremely critical. And on or before, all you do is have a moving target. So I try not to do on or before. I try to say, let's leave it as July 30th. And if we need to close on the 15th, then let's just do an addendum.
So as a coach and a trainer, I train that date as a date for the seller.
Mm-hmm.
So the seller has to be out by that date. That's the date we have to close unless there's another addendum behind it that changes that date. So it can be verbally changed. Hey, look, we're all ready. It's 2 weeks prior. Is the seller ready to move? Seller's ready to move. Let's put an addendum, change it together, and let's go close.
Make sure you ask title before you do that.
Well, I understand. That's where it came from.
Oh yeah.
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
That's where we're already came from.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but the thing of it is, I like to do. I never liked the on before, as you said. It keeps it too open, but it actually kind of is.
But it is. No, absolutely
Yeah.
it is. But I would prefer to have it as an addendum always, just because if something does go wrong, we have date certains that we can look back at and say,
Exactly.
this should have happened on this date and it didn't. You were in breach there. You were not in breach here, and so on and so forth.
Oh, and we all got timelines.
Right, absolutely.
As an attorney and as a realtor, we have timelines
Absolutely.
that we need to follow.
Absolutely. So the other thing about the Florida contract that I like, which I use when I don't have deals with realtors where some two parties have come to me independently and they want me to draft up a 2-page document. I will absolutely not do that, and I will always use the FAR contract with the same exact explanation that I give everybody else. It's like, this has been litigated, this is all on paper for a reason, let's stick with the tried and true, we can make changes as we need to.
All right, and then, so my question would be is, so let's say we're gonna change the closing date. There's sort of a pecking order that I kind of follow. The first thing I do is, if we're gonna change the closing date, I'm gonna talk to the lender and just make sure that he's even remotely capable of doing it.
Right.
Because if he's not ready, you can't be ready.
No funding.
Right?
Correct.
Right? So I typically go there, and then we'll follow up with you to make sure that it's still possible, because not only, it's the workload and the impact of everything that they're handing you, it's also your schedule.
Correct.
Right? So, we have to make sure everybody is available, especially when it comes to the actual date certain. You have to be available, or your team has to be available to get it done.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that people don't realize is, for example, certain things expire after 30 days, an estoppel, a lien search, those kinds of things. So if you're telling me you're not closing until December, and all of a sudden you come to me and you say, we're going to close August 1st. Well, I haven't actually ordered all these things because they come stale after 30 days,
Right.
and then I have to reorder them, and now I'm charging either your buyer or your seller double the money,
Right.
which makes no sense.
Right.
So the idea is, and I tell people all the time, if you think you're going to close early, go ahead and tell me as soon as possible so that we can order all these things and get these things ready to go. And if for some reason we don't close early, well, then one of your clients is going to end up taking that hit. But if we were ready, then we're ready to go and everybody's on the same page. I think that's one of the biggest things that people forget, is that yes, there are multiple parties, there are movers, there's title, there's, sellers and buyers, people have children in schools, people have things going on. And yeah, closing early is wonderful, but it's not always practical.
So you're saying that communication is key.
What? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, the seller ends up talking to the buyer's agent, but nobody talks to title or the lender. And so I think sometimes just getting everybody on one group email makes it easier without disclosing private financial information about your buyers or specific information about your sellers. You can still have this discussion and make sure everybody's in on the same thing.
Do you remember the day when they actually were sitting at the table? We had buyers on one side and
Yes.
sellers on the other. The agents were here. The closer came in. I had sub down the middle with chips and drink. I had a party.
No, we can't do that.
We can't do that anymore. Isn't it amazing how the evolve has
Well,
taken
COVID
place?
has also changed that, because when COVID hit, we weren't having in-person closings, we were having a lot of remote closings, and then it just sort of became easier to separate buyers and sellers. Sometimes those two parties do not get along, and so...
Oh, there was things that started to be said at the table that shouldn't have been said, and I can probably give you tons of examples where I totally understand why that's not happening anymore, but I do miss it because it was fun.
It was nice. The camaraderie was kind of fun.
Yeah,
People got to talk about
When
it. They're like,
it was
"Oh,
fun
yeah,
when it was fun.
Well,
Right, that weird light switch in the back, that does this. Okay, yeah. But
Well,
there are some issues that you want to make sure that we're separating.
My worst was when the gentleman was sitting on the table and I had the seller, and all he wanted to talk to his wife about was how we couldn't wait to get there so he could rip out the kitchen and do it all over again.
Yeah, that
And
really puts people off.
What he didn't understand was I had just talked to my seller about not doing that, and she did it anyhow. And now she's like, "Oh, that's going to go away." She was ready just to stop, and I had to take her outside of the room and have a conversation with her. This is not about your kitchen. This is about you getting to Nevada where you want to go, and we had to go through that. So yeah, that's kind of where the ball started rolling. So it's interesting though. I just thought you would remember.
Yeah, no, I do, and I appreciate having everybody separated now. I just think it makes things a lot smoother. It goes much quicker,
It does.
and there's a lot less possibility for something to come up that really shouldn't come up.
One sentence can change the entire.
Absolutely.
Right. Personality issues are the hardest to navigate. Yeah.
Absolutely.
definitely.
Yeah, we did have to break up a pseudo fist fight one time and call the police. I'm not kidding.
Well, no wonder you're glad that they're separate now.
Oh, that's great.
We ended up calling the police. Palm Beach County Sheriffs went to our Palm Beach office to separate two guys with way too much testosterone that day and who were just really amped up. And everybody was very stressed out, and we get it. But, we decided.
Gladiator style closing.
It was a little too much
He
that
just
day.
didn't want to let his man cave go. That's all his thing was, right?
Yeah.
All right, so
Anyway.
you touched on something that I really hadn't thought of. A lot of times, within real estate, there are different professions that you really you don't have to know exactly what they're doing. Like an appraiser, it's good to know, but technically you don't have to know. It helps us better assess what the price top to sell a house, but you don't technically have to know. It's the same thing here. When you said the estoppel, I thought, ooh, I wonder how many people know what an estoppel is. So
Most people don't.
right.
So what do you stop?
Right.
That's nothing to do
But
with that.
right, so
So your estoppel is basically a fancy term for an expensive document that the homeowners association will provide you to tell you that you are current with your payments, what the current assessments are, what upcoming assessments are, any other fines or violations against the property that the homeowners association will have. So
That they charge for.
yeah.
that they yes. So and it's now regulated by the state. So we used to have lots of charges all over the place. They're now regulated by Florida statute as to how much they can charge and how long it can take to get those back. But that usually gives, especially in a homeowners association, to me that's almost better than a lien search because they will know exactly what's going on in their own community, more so necessarily than the county or the city will.
Right, that makes sense. So when you are beginning, right? So Jillian and her checklist. She's got 1,000 checklists for
Yes.
She has a checklist for checklists.
She should.
So
That's what makes her good.
what is it that like walk through the process of what's the step-by-step kind of thing to closing? Can you rattle that?
Yeah, sure. So we get the contract. We'll review the contract. We'll ask any questions that we need to a buyer or seller's agent that we are not 100% sure on. And then we start gathering all the information that we need from all the various parties, whether it is buyers, sellers, your lender. We wait for the lender's title order. We get all the information from the lender as to what they require. We order title. Our underwriter will provide us with a title commitment, and that commitment will have all the requirements that we need to actually clear title issues. And then we work with the parties to get that cleared up. In the meantime, we order lien search, estoppels, all the other things that we need, a survey if you need one. Different things that are needed for your particular transaction. We go through that, and we work with the parties to inform them as to what's pending, where we are, what's going on. Once we're working towards a final closing with the lender and we have a final number that we can provide the parties, then we'll shoot that out to everybody. We'll set closing time and date, and we're done. That's it. Post-closing, we make sure we've got everybody's money. We send out all the wires and checks and everything else. It's pretty straightforward stuff, but it sounds much easier when I say it like that than it is in reality.
And that sounds great when you have one at a time, but when you have
Yes.
multiple going on at one time, that gets to be a
That's where those giant checklists
scheduling.
come into
Yeah.
really important play because yes, keeping on top of all this stuff is challenging at times. And a couple of years ago when we had closing after closing after closing, it was definitely challenging. It was all hands on deck, 12-hour days, but you do what you got to do to get it done.
So then I would say most professionals in title, so whether you're a title company or an attorney, it's not just what you're doing. You have a staff that it's all managed
Absolutely.
by and
Yeah.
to.
There are a handful of people who do it themselves. I'm not really quite sure how they do it all by themselves.
They can't do many. I mean,
But even with automated software, which we have some things that are automated, it's still challenging to keep everything on track.
yeah. So I mean, my experience is definitely more limited than yours, but I've already discovered that I'm amazed at how a title agent, the person doing title, I don't even know how you would qualify the difference between, but the person doing the title can break a deal or severely impair the ability to get it closed. I find what you do that's exceptional is the way you communicate. You are exceptional at managing the personalities. You know how to communicate into a collective communication, right? With that the group email, and you'll say something if it's obviously that the other agent has so completely dropped the ball. You word it so well that they're not put on defense and they're not. Right, you're not calling them out publicly, that kind of thing.
No, I appreciate that.
But it's important because I've also been on the other side with other people, and it's like it's a fight,
Well, listen, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing.
Right.
We want to get to the closing table. Everybody gets paid when we close.
Yeah.
So what is the point of throwing people under the bus? And I tell people all the time, it's like, let us not throw each other under the bus. Let's work together to get it resolved.
Right.
There is nothing good that's going to come of us all fighting with each other,
Right.
Because then we're not going to close.
No
we're
one
not
will.
going to have this deal. So let's get the deal to the table, however we have to get there, and let's do it amicably, because at the end of the day, I'm going to see you again.
Right.
Even if you don't use me for title, somebody else might, and I'm going to see you guys again. So let's just get it resolved.
Right. Just get along. Well, rule number one
It's
is
hard to do sometimes.
rule number one is never argue with an attorney. Right.
And rule number 2 is if you don't understand, don't look at rule number 1.
Right. But that's I think that's.
But we're not afraid to be wrong either. If you call me out on something and say, hey, this is wrong, I have no problem saying, hey, let's fix it. No problem.
Right, and that's the whole
Because it
nature of the
happens.
beast. Yeah.
We miss something. We
Well,
forget something.
Nobody wins on a blame game. No
Right.
one
No.
ever wins on that, except for you feel a little exoneration at the end, but that's it.
And
It's just
I-
a moment, but then nothing happens, and you're like, why'd I even say that?
But you understand that, realtors are commission based. Your mortgage people are commission based. So, we don't get paid unless we close your deal. So all of these things are stressful to people. And if
Right, they wanna get paid.
you're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
who's doing a lot of title or closings rather, it's going to be stressful because you want to make sure those deals close. So people really resort to their worst instincts at times, and that to me is really sad.
Yeah, and that sort of brings me to that side. What I like how you handle it is it fits my persona. I don't like to I don't need to argue with somebody. And so when I come at a problem, a lot of times I'll come at it and say, well, look, we're both professionals and we're going to work with each. Like you said, I just had this conversation with somebody that they held a deposit when it's going to be litigated because it's not clear.
Right.
And the issue is just simply that it's easier to work through it than screaming at each other.
Absolutely.
And so I had to let them vent to get finished and then get to the end and say, hey, look.
Are you done?
Yeah, well, not even that, but just sort of take it and redirect the conversation
Absolutely.
to, look, we're going to know each other for a long time. We both live in the same community. We probably shop at the same Publix. So the best thing is, when you negotiate, you don't have to, it doesn't have to become gladiator style. We don't have to maim somebody. The goal is let's do good business. And when we disagree professionally. It's in the profession. Right? And we handle it. I said, to me, it's not an issue of what you've done or what I've done. It's an issue of what's in the contract.
And at the end of the day, it's not about you
Yes.
or you.
It's
It's
about
about your buyers and your sellers.
Exactly.
And it's not about me. It's not about
Right.
the mortgage company. It's really about these buyers and sellers who are trying to move into a new home or sell their home or whatever the case may be. And these people are stressed out.
Yeah.
And I get it. They don't do this every day. We do. So it's our job to make sure that we keep them on track and that we keep them calm during the transaction. And everybody infighting amongst themselves doesn't help the buyers and sellers.
It sort of crosses over into a philosophy. I never realized that I did this. It wasn't like a plan, but I've never been someone that counts my money client by client. I look at it more like year to year.
Yeah.
And so I know that, I've owned more than one business, so I understand that not every sale goes through, not every job gets completed, not everybody is satisfied, right? I mean, if you've been in business long enough, there's just no way that you can have 100% satisfaction.
Yeah.
The satisfaction might occur that you had a peaceful parting, that kind of thing. But that's how I run it. Is that simply is I don't worry about the money I'm making from my clients. My clients will ask me, they're like, well, this is only a $200,000 deal, or I had a tenant and we couldn't find him a house. It was actually the challenge, the disappointing part is they were being conversationally refused because they had too many children, right? Which is not allowed. And that was right. And then I would say, hey, why don't you send that to me in writing so I can give that to my client, and that way we know it's okay to look for a new house. But then they call me back, we're under contract, and then it's off them.
Right.
So, I went and I found a house that they said, she goes, well, we won't. They was mad at me. She goes, you're an agent, right? I'm like, right. She goes, I don't pay agent commission. And I said, that's okay. I said, my clients need a house.
Right.
I'm not going to worry about, right? So it's the same thing where it's the difference for you is you pretty much it's pretty much the same across the board.
Yep.
Right?
I don't care if it's a $10 million deal or a $100,000 deal. I'm going to treat everybody the same.
Right.
I'm going to try and get as close to the end without any problems as humanly possible. Sometimes we do have them. But the idea is if you treat everybody the same and you treat everybody with respect, you will get those repeat customers. And I think that a lot of people forget that. It's not just about this deal.
Right.
It's about your client. That person is going to refer you business. That person is going to refer you other friends. If the deal falls apart, but you did the right thing and you did right by your client, they're going to remember that.
Right.
If the deal goes through and you were a jerk the whole time,
They're
they're
gonna remember that.
never going to
Right.
remember that, oh yeah, we're going to use Joe next time. We're going to use Keith instead.
Right.
And that's just the reality of it. We get a lot of repeat business from people for that very reason. Because at the end of the day, your $200,000 client one day becomes your $2 million client.
Right.
Can we clone her?
Right.
Right? I mean, agents, title, lender. I mean, that's really, if everybody had that same schooling
Right.
and understanding, then and I think a lot of it comes from past experience.
Absolutely.
I can tell you about thousands of deals that I've closed, and everyone's been different, but I learned from every single one of them.
Absolutely.
And I have a lot of my students that will say to me, how come you're not riled up about this? This is just totally wrong. Well, I've been here.
Right. You're right. It is wrong. However, there's always a however.
Yeah.
There's always a
I'm
however.
already got in my mind what to do
Exactly.
because of what I've already been through. I didn't know it at the time I was going through it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the agents that we touch in this podcast is the very fact that they don't know. That's why they're listening.
Right.
And we want to kind of educate them. I want to cut off years of experience, all the agents I talk to. I want to say, look, there's 5 or 6 years you don't have to deal with that I had to deal with.
Right.
And that was the learning curve.
Yeah.
Right? And I think the thing is just get along.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid about doing someone else's job. I can't tell you how many times I had to do the other person's job as a real estate agent. But it got done because it wasn't about me.
Right.
It was about the people, right? I've also witnessed that agents have been the reason why deals have fallen apart and not the buyer and seller. They stand there like this because they wanted the house. And then there's a conflict that happens, right? Because the mediators can't get along. Well, this is not about the mediators. And I think what you said is like really super important for our audience to understand. We have just got to let people get along. We have to do whatever it takes for our people that we're serving.
Right. I tell my agents that I work with all the time, if the deal's going to fall apart, the deal's going to fall apart. Don't worry about saving the deal. Save the client.
Thank you.
Save the client.
Exactly.
There will be another deal. That
Exactly.
client still needs a house. They still need to sell.
Right.
Whatever it is. They will still be there for you if you do right by them.
Exactly.
And I think that's a not just by choosing an attorney, but the title is the focal point of all the negotiations. And I would say a fair number would be 60% of most people who negotiate it do it with a little bit of hostility, right? Like I'm not that guy. There's never a reason. I might laugh or chuckle at an offer that's just absolutely ridiculous, but not because I'm being condescending. It's because it's actually funny, but you appreciate the effort, right? They're like, hey, they're gonna stick with it long enough. Somebody might, accept.
I used to say, I know how I feel about what the offer is going to be. Let me go find out what the seller thinks.
That's great. That's great. I like that.
I'm gonna write that one down.
Yeah, I like that.
Another one added to another Keith wisdom.
I had one episode, right?
But to both of your points, the agent who is starting out, who doesn't have another job right now, who is just really waiting for that commission, is more likely to do things that are a little pushing of the edges and too far pushing of that line because they really, really want to get it closed. And I'm not saying all of them, there are a few. Most of them, for the most part, follow the rules and do what they're supposed to. However, when you are living paycheck to paycheck or deal to deal, it becomes much more challenging because you're so desperate to get it done.
Right.
And without naming names, we had one recently where that was the case. And it was not anybody you know.
Why you left?
And unfortunately,
I just wanted to know the name.
the whole thing fell apart because of the buyer's agent, the way this person was behaving. And ultimately, the buyer's agent was cut out of this completely. And the buyer, after cutting the buyer's agent loose, went and called the seller's agent and said, I want to work with you instead. You showed a level of professionalism. You know what you're talking about. You know the area. You obviously know a lot more than this other person, and we want to work with you. I mean,
It's happened a lot.
and it happens a lot.
Yeah.
So the idea else, it's okay to call somebody else
Right.
and say, I'm not really sure. Let me find out for you. Because at the end of the day, if you call somebody with the experience who's been doing this for 20 plus years, they're going to have an answer for you. They're going to give you some guidance that you're not going to know on your own.
Right.
I call underwriting counsel all the time for weird things that come up.
Right.
What do I do with this? this is not something I've ever dealt with before.
I had one of those the other day. Remember, we were talking to Jillian. Two POAs.
Oh, right.
Never had two POAs on the document before, and I had a girl that says, well, they're supposed to be, have two of them. New Jersey apparently has a law that you can.
Yeah.
And so there was a document, and both of them were on there. And I said, well, the first one that signs goes on first, the second one goes on second, and we just move on.
But yeah, so the
sometimes
idea
it
is,
happens.
you're not going to know everything.
Right.
Make sure you call somebody else. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's
That's
really
why I reached
okay.
out to Jillian. I figured she would.
Oh, right. But she had no idea. I know, right? She was like, 1,000 transactions. She's like, nope, never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
Oh yeah, no. If it's weird, we've done it. Trust me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what people are looking for. They're looking for the experience. And tell a lot of you new agents, that's one of the reasons why they ask you, how many houses have you closed on? Because they want to make sure you've been through some of these things so they don't go through the mistakes with you. That's what a seller wants. That's what a buyer wants. But be that agent that's not willing to just do it themselves. That's why we create groups. That's why we have the one group, right? Because we're all wanting to be able to come together and say, look, if you got somebody, we're here. Somebody has more experience, use it. My coaching team's the same way. I got people that's got 12 years experience, people that's got 0. And we're all working together to help each other out. And that's really that's why I love where I work.
No, I get calls from agents who have been doing this for 20 years. I've never seen this before. What do we do?
Right.
I'm like, oh yeah, we did one of those 2 weeks ago. I got that.
Yeah.
Because within the collective, within the group, somebody's going to have an answer. Somebody's going to have some guidance or some wisdom that they can impart upon the rest of the group. So.
I think that goes back to the agents understanding that their team is not just a team. Everybody comes in and says, I don't want to be part of a team. I just want to. It's not. The team is who's surrounding you. Right. So when I first started this business, it was just me and my wife. And then I would have my broker, and I'd have her assistant. I would have the title, and I would have their assistants, and I would have a lender and their assistants, and we're all sitting in one big giant picture because that's my team.
Yeah.
And so that's why the collaboration, which is one of my favorite words,
Right.
the collaboration that we have amongst our professionals that are part of the transaction is where an agent needs to have their strength. Is knowing that they are on your team, because you're going to be able to, your expertise is to be able to help things look good, come to a fruition. Your mentor, your coach, or whoever that you're dealing with is going to help you do that. So don't do this by yourself.
No, and that goes back to your point that if you've never done something before, you're not going to know how to do it.
No.
So let's just work together and let's get it done.
Yeah.
The other agent on the other side, you may have tons more experience and may be able to say, hey, let's try it this way instead. You never know where that advice is going to come from, and you never know who within your sphere or your group of people is going to be the right person to ask.
So how long have you been doing this?
I've been practicing law for 25 years.
Holy jeez.
So for 25 years, you still ask for help. You still
Absolutely.
ask for advice.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's a lesson learned. I've been doing this for almost 21 years. Same thing. If I don't know, I reach out.
Absolutely.
And that's what this is. We should not feel that our agents that we're working with, even if they're across the table with another broker,
Doesn't matter.
across the state, it doesn't matter. We should be working together to accomplish the goal that we're all looking
No, and you
for.
mentioned about asking, what the appraiser does and things like that. Your home inspectors, your appraiser, all these other people, anything that they can teach you, anything that you learned from them is something that you now use for your next client, right? Because you learned something about an electrical panel, you learned something about how a specific, fuse works, whatever it is. It's something that you can look at next time and go, I've seen this before, and I think this is going to be an issue. Let's call in an expert.
Yeah, right.
Only because you paid attention to what a third party was doing.
Right. And hopefully it's somebody that's good. And I think that's what I would recommend to most people is if you're an agent, what you should do is look for those people that are qualified. Yeah, they always say, you do business with people that you know, like, and trust. That's number one for selecting a realtor. But making sure that somebody's capable, make sure that like, and trust somebody who's capable and qualified and exceptional at what they do. When you find those people, be good to them, be loyal to them.
Absolutely. And it's okay to challenge your realtor too and say, hey, realtor, I've been using this particular title company, this particular inspector for every single property I've ever closed. I really would rather use them. Pick up the phone and call that other person and say, hey, listen, my client really wants to use you. Tell me a little bit about your service. Tell me a little bit about what you do. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, no. No.
You are guiding the transaction and you are driving the bus, so to speak, as the realtor. but you're not the end all be all. And so I think by admitting that you need to listen to what your clients are saying, what your customers are saying, what people around you are saying, that's critical to the transaction being successful.
Some of my best lenders and best inspectors and best resources have come from clients who've given me a suggestion.
Absolutely.
You know, and this is the truth. You can write this one down too. You find most of your expertise, you find most of them by accident.
Yeah.
You don't find them because you're searching for them.
No. It comes up because you've never dealt with something before, and all of a sudden somebody tells you, "Oh yeah, call this guy. He knows exactly what to do with that."
But one of the lovely things about working with you, you know, and it's unfair that I came into this business and you were my first title, right? You know, like that was really, I mean, but having that relationship with Jillian gave, you know, I got to inherit a lot of people that were really qualified. But I find the one thing about you that is, it's not completely unique, but it's unique enough that I notice is a lot of times we do get stuck having to go with another title, and whether for whatever the reason, and you don't act like we're cheating on you, you know. And we have lenders that we work with that sometimes got so upset that we didn't go to them. But sometimes it was as simple as it just was a personality difference, and I knew it wasn't going to serve my client well, you know. And that's what my job is. My job isn't to make you rich. It's right. Together. We want to make sure that it goes back to what you said, is if you always take the customer into account first.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's good to know more than one of anything.
And what am I going to do by getting upset with you? How does that benefit me?
Well, and it plays into how you do business all the way through, right?
It doesn't. I mean, I understand, listen, you know, builders have their own in-house title people, they have their own mortgage people, they even sometimes have their own realtors. And if you walk in the door with no realtor, they're going to get that commission, not you. It is what it is. You can't control everything that's happening in the industry. You can't control every person. Do I want more business? Of course. Everybody wants more business. Do I want to get all of your business? Of course. Is that feasible? No. I know that.
Right.
It's life.
Right. And
it's life.
It's not, we can't even control it as much as we would want to do it. Right. But, you know, there's that world of risk as well, if you think about it. You know, you can, I always tell people, you can sue for anything. It doesn't matter if it's reasonable or not.
Correct.
If you can get somebody to file it, or you do it pro se.
That's right. You wore a shirt that I don't like. I'm going to sue you.
I mean,
it's that. I know that's ridiculous.
But it's
that's
very feasible.
Florida is very much a very litigious state.
So referring people, you know, there's a risk of association. And so it's important to make sure that you have a group of people that you're going to recommend. Now, I don't have a second title company that I've loved. They've been competent,
sure,
you know, but I haven't loved the communication, and I think that's where you by far overshadow everybody.
To me, that is a very important thing.
That's exceptionally important.
Because if nobody knows what's going on until 3 days before closing, it makes it very challenging for everybody to fix whatever is going on. Whereas if I tell you, hey Joe, I saw this and we need to get this fixed, what do we do? Let me talk to your seller or your buyer. I mean, what is the point of waiting until the last second to not say anything? I've dealt with other title companies where we're doing simultaneous closings and they don't tell you anything until the day before, and I'm driving myself crazy trying to get information.
Right. Yeah, I've had a few of those. Oh yeah. You know, and then when you run across them again, at least you kind of know where their pattern is.
Yeah, you know what to expect.
But it's good to have. It's exceptionally important to have somebody like you on our team, because, you know, let's say one of those key people in the process is like a black hole, and you're this shining star, and we have it's like you're shining light. Sometimes it's, you know, I had a lender that he was a black hole, and we just couldn't get information out of him, and we were like, what is going on? And at least from you know, you were like, hey, are you getting in touch with this guy? I'm like, no, I'm not. I can't get a hold of him. She's like, okay, good. I want to make sure it wasn't me. You know, like we're trying to get a response out of the guy who's giving the money. We couldn't get any. There was no noise whatsoever. But the amazing thing was, as frustrating as it was, you know, your communication was just bulletproof. And that's what and again, my background starts in communication, you know, and so I love when I see people that you don't have to go for the jugular just to get a response. You can go in kindly but with knowledge and professionally assertive, right? And you get the same response you do if you're swinging a hammer.
No, I hung up those litigation shoes years ago. I have no desire to fight with people for a living. I did that for the first few years when I was out of law school, and I thought, this is really not for me. I would rather work things out than continue to fight with people.
Were you in a courtroom?
Where I was.
Were you ever in a courtroom?
Yeah.
So there's where that final statement, that's where that delivery, right? The delivery statement comes from.
Sure.
It's definitely not what you say, but how you say it.
Yeah.
And your delivery, you stay calm. They most likely will stay calm. They may not at first, but
Yeah, bad news is bad news is bad news.
Right.
There's no way to spin it except to say, look, let me just be upfront with you. Let me tell you what's going on. And I know we had one with Jillian where we found an awful title problem, and I don't think you were on the team yet, but these two people had a foreclosure that had not been done properly against the property. They didn't technically own the property correctly, and it was going to be something that was going to take a year to resolve.
Oh, wow.
Because the bank had to re-foreclose on that property. So they couldn't even get a quitclaim deed from the current owners or the prior owners, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was a complicated issue.
When the banks
And it was from the 08-09 years.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was
Timing's
a complicated issue.
Yeah.
And these guys wanted to hear none of it. And I was like, look, guys, here's the situation. Here's what we have. Here's what I'm being told. You are free to take it to any other title company. You are free to take it to any other attorney you would like. You are going to get the same result. There is no other way around this.
And it wasn't their fault. Was it their fault?
It wasn't their fault,
Yeah,
but they took it out on me, and that was okay. I understood that they were upset with the bearer of bad news. I get it.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
So don't shoot the messenger didn't work in that case.
It didn't, and that's okay.
But they didn't
But
shoot the
again,
messenger.
and Jillian called me a few months later and said, well, they're going to relist it next year and and they don't want to use you. And I said, that's absolutely fine. I get it. I'm not going to take it personally because I had to give them the bad news.
Right.
But again, it's just get the message out there, get the information out to the parties, and let the parties make the decisions with all the information on the table. If you're making decisions half blind, you're going to make decisions that are wrong.
Well, in the long run, that's what they want.
Yeah.
They want the truth, even though they don't want the truth, right? You can't handle the truth system.
Right.
So they may not want that, but that's what they really want deep down inside.
They
It's
do.
like, okay, I know, but this is what really has to happen, So
They don't want to hear it, but
it's
they know
okay.
it.
It's fine. And I think in the long run, they'll understand that. They may never come back to you
And that's okay
and
too.
beg you to forgive them, but that's okay too. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it really is.
I think that's another lesson that the agents can learn too, is to understand that you're not going to please everybody, but you just want to lead with some grace, and that you're there for them.
And not every relationship is going to work out in the end.
And some relationships, some best relationships, right? I've always said this, that some of the best deals that you ever will do are the ones that you've let go.
Yeah.
Right? Some of the best, because they take up so much of your time and so much of your mindset.
Yes.
Sometimes you just have to let them go, and it's okay.
Yeah, I had to fire a few realtors, and that's okay too.
Choked up.
But no, at the end of the day, it's about making sure that we all get to the end result. The end result is closing.
It is closing and taking care of the buyer or seller.
Absolutely.
Well, that's great. I think the sum of the day, right, is you have a title company and then you have an attorney who does title. I'm actually a great fan of Christina Rubio. I highly recommend her. I think as you saw this, you get a good sense of, it's nice working with good people who do good things, and that's her priority. I would recommend that you look into.
I'll second that. I mean, we know each other. We don't know where we know each other from, but I've never heard anything bad.
Well, thank you.
And today has been
Which in this world today,
It's good.
it's hard not.
That's
people
true.
love to complain.
yeah.
That is
But
true.
with this interview, it has helped me too to also say that you should come and see Christina, because I think she is going to help you not just as get the title done, but it's more an involvement to make sure that everybody is understanding what's going on.
Right, and there's a lot of qualified people out there.
Absolutely.
I know some people that have their title companies, own their title companies, and they're really great people, and I believe in them. But I do believe there is I've been in business long enough to know the need for an attorney, and it's nice to have someone. Again, when you have the neutral party attorney as a title, then she's speaking to the contract. She's speaking to the final product, which is getting it closed, as opposed to when I'm speaking to my attorney, he's going to try to get what I want.
Correct.
As opposed to, right, and that doesn't benefit the deal. So, well, I guess we should wrap it up because you probably have a closing to go to. I hear people knocking out there, so maybe we should give up the conference room. So this is we're in Ochoa and Rubio. This is Christina Rubio. We want to thank you guys for being here. Shop Talk for Realtors. Again, my name is Joe Matuella, always with
Coach Keith Dean.
And Christina Rubio from Ochoa and Rubio in Stuart, Florida.
Thank you.
So we'll put her information below. So if you guys have any feedback, any comments, anything you'd like to hear about in the future, just give us a shout, and we will always push the information here, and you let us know, and we will be there. See you soon.
Have a great day.